We're back again, folks. I wasn't going to do a review on this. It was just more casual viewing on a Friday after work. But my buddy Ryan texted me today and he said, when's your review coming out about The Rocketeer? So I picked this movie up before. I might even have another copy somewhere, but I have so many DVDs. I often look back through my collection and find that I have duplicates. Yes, I picked this up this week at a thrift shop for $1. This is mid-2000s DVD release. It's got the heavy-duty box with the little locking tabs that I like. The new DVD cases are so flimsy. Still has the paperwork intact. But this is not so much about the quality of the DVD box, as you know, we are here to talk about the movie. And I just kind of did a little bit of Googling. I'm not going to go too in-depth with it, but I seem to be able to fill up 6 to 8 minutes of content just rambling on about nothing in particular. Anyway, I want to point out 2 thumbs up by Siskel and Ebert, so you know it's probably going to be good. With that being said, this movie is 108 minutes long. I had always heard of this movie, and this just kind of is interesting because of the last review that I did was for the Wolfman movie that was directed by Joe Johnston. This movie is also directed by Joe Johnston. Now, granted, they came out like 15 years apart. The Wolfman came out in the 2010 range. This movie came out in 1991. I would have been 4 years old when this movie came out. And I've got a few cliff notes here just to kind of briefly summarize the movie. On the back of the box, it says, high-flying entertainment, CBS television. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Top Gun, Us magazine. Thrills and fun, Rolling Stones, buckle up and hang on tight. NBC, The Today Show, a blast. And the movie is a lot of those things. I don't think it's comparable as far as it's a classic status of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong. So let's jump into the reviews. This movie was a Touchstone Pictures, Screen Gems Pictures in partnership with Walt Disney, and IMDb gave it a 6.5 out of 10. And Rotten Tomatoes, 66% critics score average. Dang it, I forgot to look up the Google reviews. That's fine, you can do some homework on your own. I'm going to give this movie right off the bat, right here early on in the review, 4 out of 5. I think those other reviews are kind of low, and I'm, as we've talked about in my other videos, don't rely on these review sites to decide if you're going to go see a movie. I had an Instagram targeted ad yesterday, and it was the guy that directed and made the movie Super Troopers, and he was like, everybody loves it. It's a classic comedy movie, but it was panned by these snooty critics. This is a fun movie. Is it like a 5 out of 5 movie? Is it a classic? I don't think it's a classic. It's good, and I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's like up there with like Raiders of the Lost Ark, like it compared in the back of the box. That critic compared it from 1991. Or some other like adventure movies that I think like they're classics. It's a fun movie. That's what I think I would say. So the Billy Campbell character plays Cliff, and he is the so-called Rocketeer. And I really liked the character Terry O'Quinn that played Howard Hughes. I looked up what Howard Hughes looked like at the time, and it was a very close resemblance. And the Howard Hughes real-life character portrayed in this movie that was based off of a comic book from the 80s. He invented this jetpack, and the whole movie is kind of like the mafia is being hired by the Timothy Dalton character, who I believe was a 007 in the 80s. And the Tim Dalton character plays Neville Sinclair, a Golden Age Hollywood actor who is under the guise of the Third Reich Nazi Germany trying to steal this jetpack to use it as a military weapon prior to World War II, prior to 1939. So this is kind of when Hitler's rise of power was happening. But the world didn't really quite know the extent of the evils of the Nazi regime. So, oh my goodness, young Jennifer Connelly. Whew. She plays the girlfriend of Cliff, Jenny. Funny enough. Alan Arkin plays Cliff's, I want to say like they're coworkers or pals, and he's like this kind of, in 1938, aeronautics is still developing, and he kind of like reverse engineers this jetpack and takes it the step further than what Howard Hughes had done with it. And the Cliff character is kind of like a barnstorming aviation kind of a guy, which reminds me of kind of like that 1960s movie, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. That's kind of portraying the early era of flying, where you had a Wright B flyer and you're doing all these crazy acrobatics. That kind of a thing where people would go out to a field and pay money to see some crazy event. That's kind of like the whole vibe of the movie. I really like period movies. The movie was set in 1938. I think it was very authentic as far as hair and costumes and sets and the way it was done. It just felt very cool. I like how they portrayed the San Fernando Valley. I'm guessing they used the Bakersfield area because there was all these citrus groves and it was still underdeveloped, and it just felt really authentic. 4 out of 5. I just don't know why people give this movie such a low score. 6 out of 10 and 66%. It's worth it to watch it more than that. I tried to get my kids into it. 8 and under, they were kind of, this was a boring movie, Dad. I enjoy it. If you haven't seen it, pick it up. Watch it. It's worth having in your collection for used $5 copies and below is what I would say. I like the comic book kind of overlapped, kind of where they had like this Nazi thug who looked like Ron Perlman, but it was like very cartoonish and very, and then like 1991, the Joe Johnston guy's specialty was like special effects, and they had like a Hindenburg type of Graf Zeppelin that goes up in flames, but it just seems so cool for like what they were able to do at that period in time. I felt like this movie was awesome as far as special effects. They feature the Frank Lloyd Wright Ennis house, which is on the market right now and just went through like a multi-million-dollar restoration. And Timothy Dalton, underrated actor. And just overall, there's a lot of good character actors in this movie. I feel like this is the movie you would have watched on KTLA Channel 5 in the LA area as a Saturday matinee on rerun syndication. And it's clean. Not a lot of profanity. There is some violence, so your kids can watch it. That's my review, folks. The Rocketeer. Check it out. Is it a classic? Maybe if you grew up watching it, me watching it 30 years later, 31 years later, 1991. Oh my gosh. It's good, but it's not my favorite movie. I think it's a one-time watch for me. I don't know if I'll watch it again. But I did enjoy my watch, and I think you will too. Until next time, we will see you then.